Good morning, everyone. This is Sherman Crancer, your partner development manager from Microsoft, and welcome to the new format. And we're calling it The Practice, Strategies from the Titans of Sales and Industry. And today we're really thrilled to start the new show with probably, I would say, titans within their own right, within the IT industry, within the local industry or local Southern California, from DivergeIT. The focus of the actual show is going to change a little bit, where we are going to focus on three pillars moving forward. And the pillars are really going to be strategy, and then we're going to talk about focus, and then we're going to talk about profitability. So let's go ahead and move it over to, and we'll get into the agenda right here. So we're going to go into announcements, then with strategy, focus, profitability, and partner back office. So please make sure that you stay tuned as well, because we are going to have some polls that we're going to be putting on the show. All right, so let's get into introductions here. We are in the new studio, so we may have a few audio glitches here, but I think we're going to be okay. So first, you guys all know who I am, Sherman Crancer, partner development manager from Microsoft, and you can get my information here. I hope you have my information. But next, I want to introduce Jared Cook from DivergeIT, and have him kind of just talk about who you are, Jared, and what do you do, and then we'll go into introducing Jim.
Oh, thank you, Sherman. Yeah. I'm Jared Cook, managing partner at DivergeIT. DivergeIT. I pretty much run the company in the sense of all service delivery, back office, and interaction with our sales department, which is Jim Lambert's responsibility.
Perfect, great. And our next guest on the show today is Jim Lambert. Jim, please introduce yourself and what you do for DivergeIT.
I'm Jim Lambert, and I'm in charge of business development and customer service for our clients.
Perfect. All right, so let's go ahead and get into announcements. Kevin, if you can bring that up on the announcements page, perfect. The first thing that I want to kind of get into before we actually get into the show is one of the very first things is Azure Everywhere. Now, if you're not using this particular market development fund idea, you're really missing out. It is probably one of the most lucrative market development fund programs that we have out there. It's probably the easiest, and it's the quickest paid ever probably in the history of Microsoft. And basically all it is to schedule an invitation, a meeting really, and talk about Azure. You have to make sure you register it on the partner investment engine, right, the Pi engine, and register it, go have the Azure presentation, come back and say you did it, and depending on the monthly recurring revenue in that opportunity, it's either $1,500 or $3,000. Right? Now, I was just talking to a partner just recently who has already done 122 of these. Yeah. And last year they did $300,000 in MDF. They built $1 million pipeline. And one of their secret sauces is really about doing it one to many. So they're bringing in 10 people, and just think about that: 10 people, and you pre-register all of them. If it's $1,000 a month and an opportunity for each person, that's $15,000 just to have the darn meeting, right? Or if it's $2,000 a month in monthly recurring revenue as an opportunity, that's $3,000 per, and that is easily $30,000. If I were you, I'd be doing one of these every single week. That's what I would do. But I want to bring this up to everyone. If you're not doing it, you have to. If you have a problem or question, please talk to Terry or myself. We'll get you in there. All right, next is the CIE program. I think this is a great tool to kind of coincide with Azure Everywhere, because it's the same thing. You bring 10 people in. You basically, we provide the laptops, we provide the tenancy, and you run them through Office 365. But you use that program in concert with this Azure Everywhere, and now get this, you're not only getting the funding for Azure Everywhere and talking to them about that, but you're also running them through the CIE event, right? And they're looking at you thinking, wow, this is amazing. And we found in the latest metrics is 92% of all the attendees that come to these CIE events actually do business with a partner. And that's amazing, right? That is so, and you can do it 2 different ways. Now we are forming a new in January, and we want to send a minimum 10 people to this event. So probably first or second week of January. If you're interested, let me know. We'll get you to become a facilitator. Last 2 things here is the Azure Calculator and the TCO Calculator. Tim Tetrick just recently talked to me about it and mentioned that the Azure Calculator, you just go to azure.com, just go to the calculator. It's very simple. It's really worth kind of taking a look at. There's a lot of variables, so you have to really understand it. But what I thought was really interesting is right next to the Azure Calculator, there's a total cost of ownership calculator that allows you to literally right-size any environment. So we have a software and executable you can run from the TCO that will go onto their server and actually map out their server, suck it up into the TCO calculator so you know exactly what you're doing, especially for the infrastructure as a service. And then it actually says, well, what is your total cost of ownership over 5 years? What is for your current state? And it's amazing because it takes into account for energy, degradation of the infrastructure, right? I mean, just stuff gets old, stuff starts to break. The more the hours you have to put in, and the other neat thing too is you can actually put in change a lot of the parameters, right? The assumptions. So please make sure you do that. All right, last announcement that I wanted to make is this show is really about the partners. Okay, this is about you. This show is, I think, designed to do 2 things. One, okay, is to help us learn from the titans of sales and industry, learn about what it took to build their business, key insights. You can always take something away from this. But secondly, I want to have each and every one of you, all the partners, okay, on as a special guest. We're going to have sponsors too coming on here too, so it's going to expand a little bit. But I want you on so that we can create great digital assets for you. I want to be able to take these assets, record a few commercials afterwards, right? And then allow you to take those and use them as marketing material for it. It's implied endorsement. And that's what I want to do for you. But there are some conditions in order to get on here. So I want to start scheduling them right away. We're doing these every Friday. It's not like a shortage of times we're doing this, but the conditions are pretty simple. One, you have to get through that Get Healthy plan that we provide every single person. I want to make sure that you're level set, that your company has all of the incentives, that you're registered for PI, you're registered for MDF, that when I say, hey, there's a new program, you can go take advantage of it. That's what's important, okay? So that's condition number 1. Condition number 2 is that you're selling through CSP, okay? That's the hero SKU. To be frankly, I'm tied to everyone's success here. And if we're not selling through CSP, then there's no success. And then there's a knock on the ability to work here. Third is just attend these calls. Be on these calls so that we can show and invite your other people that are in your group that might be in sales or marketing. Everyone can learn something from these sessions once every Friday. So we look forward to it. The cost of these digital assets to produce is about 10 grand if you're going to do these on the street. And we're going to do this for the partners. And we're getting sponsors to pay for it. But I really want to make sure that I can help every single partner out get onto this show and create some awesome stuff. All right. So from that being said, let's get into our first. I think we're going to go into strategy, but I have a poll here. Let's see if it actually works. Okay. Ed, do you still have audio? Does everyone have audio here? I think we have a couple things that people are saying they don't have any audio. Let's see. Let's go manage content. John Strawn, I have audio but no video. I can hear and see. Hannah says I can hear and see. Okay, well, we have some people, we're working through this. All right, so let's get into the first poll here. This is a good one to get going here, and we'll go ahead and put shown to everyone. So what role does strategy play in your day-to-day operations? As you can see here, go ahead and vote. I see the light on the poll, or the poll. So I have a 1 and 3 year plan and follow it like a chihuahua on a burrito. So that means that you're not letting go. I plan like generals at West Point. Strategy, is that the same thing as strategery? I don't know, maybe. Strategy, we don't need no stinking strategy. Or the last guy I know who talked about strategy disappeared. ... All right. So, cool thing here. It looks like we have some people that are pretty focused. We also have some people that lost some friends. That's good. All right. Well, let's get back to the poll here. We'll stop sharing this one and get back to what we're talking about today. All right. So let's move into strategy. All right. So this is really talking to our special guests here, and I think the very first one, and I think where we're all going to really learn something is going to be around let's talk about your company a little bit. Let's talk about your company. So the first thing is tell us a little bit about where you started in year one. Let me go back here. The company and what were your initial strategic goals?
Well, in year one, it was just get as many clients as possible and hang on to the clients that we did have starting out. So it was very simple. We had big plans, but survival, I think, was the initial issue to go after.
Did you have thoughts did you have grandiose thoughts that it was going to be easy or?
Absolutely. I mean, Jared and I both worked together at several consulting firms before we went out on our own, and we had essentially managed those firms. So we were used to managing a staff, hiring, firing, keeping the clients happy. So we felt like we knew everything that we needed already. It was just a matter of getting clients that wanted to work with us, as a new company without the infrastructure. So we thought it was going to be a lot easier initially than it ended up being.
Absolutely. I don't think you have the full spectrum of what the cost structures are when you go into it. So I mean, our first thought of actually starting a company was based on an Excel spreadsheet on a flight back from, I believe, St. Louis. We went through and listed out if we had 10 engineers billing at so many dollars that we're going to make all this money, right? Not realizing the cost of tax, overhead, PCs, our own PCs, and what the sales process is. So I think the initial steps that led us into starting the company weren't necessarily the plan we followed, but it was definitely what got us into year one.
Oh, cool. Very good. So, if you think about strategy, what did how did that change in year 1 to 5 for you guys? And then maybe what advice would you give to somebody who was, planning out their business plan?
So again, initially it was very simple. Let's try to get as many clients as we can and take care of them and grow. And we thought it'd be simple. We'll just start hiring full-time employees. But that was actually the biggest, I wouldn't say struggle, but hurdle to overcome was how do you stay profitable while investing in resources to be able to take on more work? Because if you have an opportunity that, even now, if we have an opportunity that we don't already have the resources for, how do you quickly invest and take care of your clients without losing business? So I'd say from year 1 to year 5, building the team and establishing a foundation to be able to take on new work was the biggest hurdle.
Biggest hurdle?
Yeah.
Finding the right people.
And separating yourself from your clients, right, to a degree. Clients would often say to you, well, you did this work so much faster than the guy you sent out. Right, and if you do have the metrics and the time and billing, there was the instances where they would say, Jared, you used to do this and so much faster than your other guy. And then I went back to the client and I actually realized that it took me, 6 hours to do something versus the guy sent out for 4. And the realization that really what the client liked was the extra 2 hours of me just spending time with them and my bedside manner. And how do you transition the work from you as the owner to the employees? In the first 5 years, that's a big part of establishing.
I'm sure every business that does what we do, the owner has experiences similar.
Yeah. No, I could see that. I think we have a lot of great ideas and a lot of things that start in year 1 that there's a lot of pitfalls. There's a lot of forks in the road. Things that change that take you different ways. Well, that's good. So. Let me ask you this. Profitability is an issue, right? And we want to ensure that. Let me go ahead and move these up here real quick. what are some of the challenges, that you saw that you needed to overcome, that you overcame in 1 year, 1 to 5, to become profitable? That's different than being successful, right? And success can be, there's a lot of companies out there that are public that will never make a dollar, right? But so tell me, what are your thoughts? Some of the challenges.
We've always been profitable from the first week that we were in business, and that was important to us, that we weren't just going to chase big dollars to appear as though we were a big company. We wanted to do things right. We wanted to do things thinking long term. So again, building that team, investing in that team while remaining profitable was a challenge that that we had to take on, and fortunately we were able to do that in the first 5 years, because it was very difficult early on.
That's a good point. When I left telecom, one of the big things that I did just to get started was I had 5 big national clients, that I ended up doing all of their sourcing, for all their telecommunication and data needs. And so from literally day one, it was okay.
Yeah. Things
were fine, and then it's like, okay, think about different things. What would you say are maybe some other challenges, maybe around, did you shift focus on what you were going to sell, or who you're going to sell to? Did that change from 1 to 5?
The way we deliver service has obviously changed. Initially it was just a time of break and fix type model.
Okay.
And then moving into the managed service environment, where you're actually providing a larger service to your client base, is a transition, going from a T&M, billing hours, billing post the work, to billing up front and getting the revenues and associated to those engineers and those service delivery processes. It's that in a transition itself is difficult. Not only are you dealing with the clients learning how to deal with your service in a different manner, but also how to transition employees. The employees that work in a T&M break fix environment aren't necessarily the same employees that work well in a managed service environment.
Exactly. Yeah, you got to be. That's a tough thing to manage, right?
Yeah.
I think the other thing is, and this is not a question that we have on here, but I think one of the things to also think about is and I know that a lot of people think about this, is hiring salespeople. Do you have any thoughts on that? Like, did you have any prerequisites that you thought about, or in the back of your head? How do you go about doing that?
Well, that's still a work in progress. We're still continuing to learn and hire additional salespeople. It comes back to, we want to invest in the growth and the future of our business, and to continue to grow. And we know that we can't meet our goals if we rely on 2 partners driving all of the new business. So for us, we knew that we were going to make a significant investment towards sales early on. So years before we made a significant investment, we were talking about it. We were trying to come up with a strategy to go in that direction.
Yeah. The company can't be successful if we're doing all the work. Company can't be successful if we're doing all the sales. At the end of the day, we have to build, departments that can develop the processes and ultimately deliver on what the business needs, which sales is a part of that. So, if the business is solely dependent on Jim's and my networks and our ability to handshake, then we're limited based on us. Right? So, salespeople has to be part of the equation.
That's one of the things that I think I really love about your company. And when we came, we sat down, we talked in the different departments, and you could see, the engineering staff is the engineering staff, and you have the sales staff, and you have the marketing, but they're all invested, and you built a really nice, group that all work together, but they're separate and they're doing their role, and that's helped building your business. I think a lot of IT companies and a lot of just single owners, of these are running with a 4 or 5 person. They want to do everything. They're not thinking like a CEO of, okay, how do we get from 5 to 15? How do we get from 15 to 100? Okay, well, obviously I can't be in every day-to-day operation. I've got to let go and I got to delegate. You guys delegate great, because it's like, hey, this is your job. You do that. You make sure that happens, and I think a lot of that, and I think a lot that has to do with the success that you have. So, what's on your docket for the next 10 years? What are the goals?
Next 10 years? Well, I think the next 10 years, it means what is it? I was at a conference once where the CIO, head CIO of like a large organization, actually said if you can, he goes, if you can predict out in the future, then you should be probably not in IT, but he was mentioning that he had a multi-million-dollar budget with typewriters, and at this point his budget for typewriters after 2 years had been zero, and that was of course in the 90s. So projecting out is difficult. But I would say that fundamentally what we're seeing is the elimination of the dedicated device management and moving in much more into the cloud management space, and identifying and continue to move that platform into the cloud where individual devices and systems whether it be Exchange, which we no longer deploy, SQL servers, desktops, firewalls, moving from that device-centric type model into a cloud-based model, which will eventually move us into much more vertical type style platforms where our service offering is no longer just dependent on supporting systems and devices, where it's actually providing workflow systems, content, taking over not just what affects the bottom line, but actually affects companies' top lines, revenues, and will make us much more valuable partner. And so, the steps to get from here where we're at, where we're very still device-centric, into managing cloud combined with our service offering, to then providing top-line products, which are basically, anything from designing workflow for the customers to affecting their website and their content on their on the external side of their company's visibility, is where we're basically going.
Okay.
And that roadmap's pretty clear, but you have to be in a sense of, you have to be agile enough to be able to change direction. Going from point A to point B may not be a direct line.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you think about just Office 365 by itself, that's changed our industry significantly. And that's been the last 4 years, right? 4.5, 5 years. I mean, it was BPOS before that, right? But really, the adoption of that has just all of a sudden, in the past year, really, everyone's okay with the cloud. Right? We're like, oh, okay, the cloud. it's not the breach that everyone's thinking about. Oh, you can't trust it. They're okay with it, and so that's changed. That changes what you do. Right? That changes. You have to be able to pivot, like you're talking about. So that's excellent. Do you have any other thoughts on the goals, or do you think?
Yeah, just to reiterate what he said, to be able to be agile and not be afraid of change. We embrace it. So if the industry is going to move in a certain direction, I know many other business owners that do what we do that are afraid to embrace, let's say, Office 365 a few years ago. Yeah. And they're still deploying Exchange servers. And we look at it as, if it's inevitable, then we need to figure it out, we need to be good at it, and we need to be able to go in that direction. And that's really worked out for us.
Oh, fantastic. Fantastic. All right, so let's get into our next poll here. This is going to be pretty cool. Hold on one second. Because we're going to get into, let's go ahead and, 1 second, let me pull it up. So we went on that one. Focus. All right, let's get into focus. 1 second. I think the idea here is to now talk about how do we focus on the right things? I think there's a lot of a lot of ideas, and there's a lot of new type of collaboration. Everyone's got all these new products and services and everything like that. And really, what we want to do is understand or define really what it's focused. So let me go ahead and show to everyone here. So how do you define focus? So the first question, or the first answer really is, I define it as the ability to look at something with a singular view and complete the task, or the center of interest or activity. Or I define focus as the ability to do 25 things at once and be a rock star. I explain focus as the ability that a Chihuahua has when searching for food. As you can see, Mexican is the theme today. I'm going to get some Mexican food later on. And lastly, focus is the art of sitting on the couch and remembering to call in and say, I had a busy day. Now, I hope some of you sales folks on here aren't doing that. Oh, I got one of them. So we'll just keep that down. Luckily, this is an anonymous poll, so we really do appreciate it. All right, so look, that's what we're just trying to talk about here, because focus, I think, is really important. There's just so many different products. There's so many different things that we could end up doing. And understanding, what to do is really important, and what not to do is really important. All right, so let's go ahead and get back to the presentation here. 1 second. We're going to stop sharing and go hide the stage, and boom, we're back. All right. So, the first thing that we want to look at is really ask the question here is, running a company with many employees can be really difficult. So how do you shape the focus and the drive within your sales and engineering staff? That's the question I want to ask you guys.
We're very metrics based.
Okay.
So we knew that it was important to break up in different departments, and we would ask ourselves, how do we measure success? And then we would create, and Jared actually has designed live dashboards for each of our departments. So in a lot of ways, it can be self-managed. So that's our approach to how we track each of the departments that we have. And then we have regular meetings to make sure that everybody understands why the metrics that we're reviewing are important, and we stay on the same page.
And it is exactly right. It's having specific KPIs that by individual, by department, that ultimately roll into one common goal.
Okay.
And being able to make sure that everybody understands what the underlying data is, what was creating that KPI, and they have the ability to influence that KPI. Give you an example, as a service delivery manager, typically needs high utilization, right? That by itself could lead to an effective rate at your customer in a managed service contract at a low profitability if they're just sandbagging hours, trying to get utilization. However, you give the account management group the requirement to try to get the accounts highly profitable with a KPI that measures hours against billed hours, or billed hours against revenues on that client. Then you have two people working into a common goal, which is ultimately one's trying to make sure your team's fully utilized, and the other's trying to make sure that it's profitable. So if you're building a team that everyone's on the same page, everybody's working to the same common goal, but they have different objectives to ultimately make you a successful organization as a whole.
That's good. That's a really good way of explaining that. Do you use like a CRM? Do you have? We can just say a CRM.
Yeah, we do use CRM. I'd be happy to share it. It's not Dynamics.
Okay, well, we'll leave it at that. But Dynamics is its own beast, right? And we have a couple Dynamics partners that will help anybody out here figure out. And that's Mark Avis and Ken Farmer, or Walter Fawcett, or Tuan Do, new addition to the show here, or to our portfolio. So that's good. So next thing is how did that focus change from year 1 to year 5? Because we're kind of going back to remember the first question, right? Mm-hmm. How did it change? How did the focus change in year 1 to 5?
How did the focus change?
Or did you have that from year 1?
Absolutely. Because we've been around a lot longer than 5 years. But yeah, the focus for year 1 was bill as many hours and get as much revenue as possible, right?
Yeah.
And while providing value to the customer, of course. But I think as year 5 came, we were much more into a managed service type environment, and we're converting our customer base into managed services. And that's not a simple process to take existing customers that are being billed at a break-fix T&M level and then move them into a fixed rate. And then have them understanding that it's an all-you-can-eat kind of platform. As Jim was reminding me earlier, that our first transition into managed services, customers actually cannibalized more hours than they were before, and now we're stuck at that fixed rate. So focus is how do you have a manageable agreement with a happy client and still providing value to that customer.
Okay, is that I think is certainly a concern, right? The one client that's overutilizing that managed services contract.
There's a reason why a lot of companies that do what we do have either backed off from the managed services, or they only offer it for specific clients and specific niches, versus just saying, this is our offering, this is how we support all of our clients, because it is much more difficult to manage the profitability. Mm-hmm. So that's something that, again, we knew it was the way to go. We knew that it made sense to offer managed services, but once we got into it, we realized it was, that we had to be even more on our game to be efficient, to be able to survive.
So we talked, with Brent a couple days ago. That was the last week? I can't. Everything goes so fast these days. And we were talking about building own IP, right? Mm-hmm. We talked about that. Remember hey, let's put SharePoint sites and whatnot, building IP to focus on maybe 4 or 5 things. And I know this wasn't on here, but I'm curious to see, like, what are your thoughts on that business model? Let's say you had 5 or 6 things in a package in a vertical, and that was what you did. How would that affect profitability?
I think it's going to affect profitability immensely. I think what you're looking at is if we're able to create vertical style packages along with from end to end. So you're talking about from the device management through the content management of those systems. You're looking at we become more unique in the marketplace, and more unique drives profitability. I mean, you get to a higher price point, and you're providing more value to the customers. And at the end of the day, that will result in that return on investment will clearly be beneficial.
Clearly, right?
And I wanted to add, the thing that I'm excited about, of course, focused on the business development side, is having that offering of that expertise to be able to provide that to a client is a major differentiator. So I'm excited for us to dive in, be able to provide that offering to clients where they're hearing it from us before they're hearing it from somebody else. And then the rest is, all of the other offerings that we have are going to follow that, because they're going to say, DivergeIT is the expert that is giving us this added value. So I'm really excited about this area.
Good. Well, it's really good to hear, because I mean, you guys are a titan within the industry, and to see that you're seeing that as a good thing to look at, and maybe to add that to your business. So the way I look at it is you can't be everything to everyone. You don't differentiate yourself if you are everything to everyone, and you have those clients that are constantly calling in for the tier 1 desktop support. And what does that do to your bottom line? What does that do to profitability when you're taking resources that could be doing something else? Or then I think when you start reducing the number of offerings that you even provide, or the number of things that you can do for everyone, and you not only become the expert, but you can solve the problems that when they call, because you know it. Right? Yeah. And you're like, yeah, I can do this. This is 1, 2, 3, 4. This is what we do. I think that's where the money is, and I think Microsoft does too. It's we know that creating IP and vertical, it's all about differentiation, right? It's your package, even if it's like $800 a month. Well, if you're the 600-pound gorilla in that marketplace, they just that's who we go with. We know who they are. We're not going to line item. We're not going to let somebody in that's just selling services. We need somebody who can sell a pack or use a package that's going to solve our problems that are in our vertical. Yeah.
And not only will that piece be an additional profit center, but it will contribute to all of the rest. Because when the clients buy into that, even if initially that's what they hire us for, we know that there will be more services that will follow once we have that established trust with the client.
The question is, how you do that. Is you piercing in, getting one particular line of business, and then going wide, in selling your whole service offering later on, or are we bundling it? Are you debundling those product offerings? Those are all areas that you have to be fairly agile, right, and kind of sway with the market.
Yeah, very, very true, very true. Let me ask you this: so when it comes to sales staff, I think there's some sales folks that are on our call, but there's also a lot of CEOs and owners of the company, and I think it's always good to kind of socialize this. How do you manage your sales staff? Because there's a lot of different ways. There's the hire, right out of college and pay them a small fee and big commissions. There's the mid-range, person, right? And then there's the pay them the $100,000 to come in. So, I mean, there's a lot of different ways. How do you manage the sales staff and metrics? Is it monthly or revenue-based or?
Yeah, the quota is definitely revenue-based. And so that, again, it's in alignment with the company. What are our goals, our growth goals, and they need to contribute to that. And we actually manage the staff the same way we do our engineers. We have KPIs that we discuss that are important, and obviously revenue is a key part of that. But our sales staff knows how they're doing, not just from, did we have a good month, did we sell a lot this month? The pipeline and the details of the pipeline are important. So we know that we could have a great month this month, but if we sold one big opportunity, let's say that one salesperson, and there's nothing else in the pipeline for the next several months, we know that we shouldn't be excited right now. We need to fill that pipeline. So we're very much focused on how do we build the infrastructure to grow for each of our people and follow that, and the revenue just seems to follow.
Okay. That's interesting you say that. So I think a lot of a lot of people who have sales staff aren't that involved, and that's what I think is key to this point right here, is that you're really involved in every aspect. Your metrics, they're reporting, they're using the CRM. You're probably mandating that they use the CRM.
Absolutely.
Okay. Yes.
Yeah. No, the quoting,
Absolutely.
the opportunities. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Now that is
Otherwise, you're just cowboying it.
where I think there's different modes, right? It's like, well, do we trust them? And I think there's a pushback from sales as well too. So like, oh, you want to know everything. You're micromanaging. Well, darn right, we're micromanaging. We need to figure out if you're working or if we have good funnels. So I think that's really a point to really take, is that you guys are really invested in ensuring that they are working and the opportunities are coming in and what type of opportunity it is.
Well, and I don't want to give the false impression here. I mean, micromanagement has its place. And when things are not working, when you're not achieving your goals, I mean, micromanagement, you need to be micro.
Yeah.
But as you are achieving the goals and you hitting your stretch, if you're hitting your target, that's one thing. If you're hitting your stretch, that's another thing. But at the end of the day, that's where you can be much more macro and providing, more independent leadership. But if it's just not working, absolutely micro has its place in a management style. So.
I mean, to that point, in my sales meeting this week, we discussed that some of the numbers we didn't hit for this last month with a couple of the employees, and we dove into the details, and I said, the reason why we need these metrics and these details is so that I can help. I can dive in and I can help fill the gaps, which will lead to the success. And look at the people who are succeeding. They have that information right now. So let's all be on the same page. It's not just that I can track whether they're working or not, or whether they're working hard, but I can contribute to their success by filling in the gaps that maybe are missing.
That's excellent. I mean, if you come from a sales background too, right? I mean, this is, and a lot of what I found, I mean, that's all I've ever done, sales, marketing, but what I found is in our industry, we have great tacticians. We have great people who are, technicians, tacticians, just great companies, right? But the sales and marketing, they don't really quite understand, and that's okay. It's just it's not your strength. So I think that they will also hire people and just say, go do it, and they're wondering
works out.
Why it doesn't. This is the hope and pray method, right? And focus, your focus, and that's the key to this whole thing, is focus on those metrics. So that's good. So there was a question actually from the group. Walter said, what type of salesperson does DivergeIT hire? Just out of school, or the 100,000 plus also inside versus outside?
We've done both, right?
Yeah, we've had success in both, and we failed in both with some of our hires. So, a big part of it for us, and I can say that I believe this for the engineering staff as well, is we look for somebody that is motivated, has good energy, and fits our culture. And so if somebody is the 100-pound gorilla, we sit down and we in the interview, we'll say, here are our metrics, here's how we track the success. And if you want a $200,000 salary as a salesperson, I'm willing to discuss it, but we're going to discuss the numbers, and it's going to be real clear if the numbers aren't going to add up based on the results, then this is going to be a short-term play, and that isn't good for anybody.
They're going to have to do $2.5 million worth of business.
Right. But if they can do it, then great, let's talk about it. And nobody wants to just take a job for a couple months and then fail and get out. So
yeah, you have to be thinking that $2.5 million. What is the total cost of sale here?
Right.
How expensive is this person going to be?
What's your budget against the gross sales, and of those sales, what's the product mixture, right?
Yeah.
It's great that you did a $200,000 resale deal, but our margin on that doesn't even cover your base. For the month,
Exactly. Like sweet. Thanks. That's good to think about. I think when you merge, when you start shifting to the packaging and the vertical, I think this could be advice for everyone, is then you don't have to get that $150,000 rep that has those things, because now you're thinking, okay, we can train and we can reduce our total cost of sale, and we just make sure we make the right hires, but we have less to talk about, and it's more front end actionable items. And now we're thinking about how do we sell that, not just locally, but regionally and statewide and then nationwide. So I think that's going to help with that. And I think for everyone here, the more complicated the product or the complicated the scenario is going to be, or if you're selling everything to everyone, then you're going to have to get somebody that and pay more for somebody who actually has some type of experience within the industry and kind of knows, because it'd be tough to hire the straight out of college kind of deal. So that was a good question. It's a good answer. So, you guys have some really successful salespeople, I think, and engineers too. I always know that internal drive isn't something that you can train. Either, and how do you guys, when you're looking at hiring, what is in your head when you're thinking about that? How do you, get that out of somebody, or can you?
So we still make mistakes in hiring. We have some people that we didn't know were going to be great that have turned out to be great, and some that we thought that were going to be great that weren't. So I don't think there's a magic formula, but I think what works for us, at least in my interview, my process on the sales side, is I want somebody, again, that has drive, has motivation, and I think is going to work well with the rest of our team and fit in our culture. Because we want people to be excited to come to work. We want them to be enthusiastic about the direction of the company, and that's really important. So in the interview questions, of course you want to know about their experience and previous success, but I'm trying to dive into figuring out why they were successful, because they're all going to talk about their successes. But I want to know what led to those successes, and then try to make a judgment call on whether that's going to fit for our company or not. And we've had good success. Our turnover rate is much lower than industry standard, I would think. So,
yeah, I think the statement is you don't fire for the resume, right? So it's, the resumes can get you the door, but it's not necessarily how you get hired. And it's definitely not the person that's going to make you succeed, as a company. So, we our process is, we run through the gambit. Multiple interviews. We're slow to hire. Quick to fire sometimes. But at the end of the day, it's more about the person and their ability and what they bring to the table than what they know.
Yeah, it's business risk. I mean, that you have to be able to pull the trigger one way or the other. It's business risk, right? And it's profitability overall. Mm-hmm. You can't keep somebody on that's not producing, right? But that's a good point. You think about it, like I'm glad you brought that up. Is what got you there? What did you do? And that's a good thing. Gosh, I haven't thought about that. 5 years ago, when you said that you're the top number one seller in wherever. Okay, well, how'd you do it? What'd you do? Tell me. What?
I'd say it's our people. I mean, we can provide only so much leadership. We can only do so many things. Without the people we have behind us, and without making sure you're building the right team, I mean, it's just you're not going to go anywhere.
And when you ask that question of somebody in an interview, you can read a lot into their answer. Right? You can determine whether maybe they were just surrounded by a great team, or maybe it was the product that they were selling, maybe it was the timing. So that's where if you're paying attention and you genuinely are engaged in the questions and the answers, I think you can read a lot.
Fantastic, thank you. That was really insightful there. And then so we already covered the deals versus revenue based. Did you ever think about deals? Did you ever want to do something on, okay, you need to do 5 deals a month? You ever thought of it that way, or is it just revenue? So it doesn't matter where they hunt.
So it's both.
Both.
Yeah. So I mean, at the end of the day, the revenue numbers need to be there to continue. But again, if it's one deal, we have metrics on all of it.
Yeah.
Okay, and we have our close ratios on all of the metrics that we track. So if we meet our revenue number, that's good. It's great if we also have we're carrying a lot of extra opportunities in the next month. So we track all of it. That goes back into the details of the KPIs that we meet on weekly to make sure that we're healthy looking at the future, besides just what we close this month.
I think it's different when you're talking about new business too, and whether we're bringing extra value to the customers. Where are we able to bring the rest of the product lines that we have to bear against the customers, and how many are we turning to those? That's very different than say how we manage bringing in new business.
Okay.
So I mean, hunters and farmers are just, you manage both those very differently.
Yeah, you do. Yeah, they're very different. Very interesting.
But I would rather have I'd rather close 10 opportunities with, let's say, 100 employees each, than one with 1,000.
Yeah.
Because we just look at that diversity of the offering it's an advantage. So if we close the one with 1,000, I'm asking the question, why do we just have one deal? Because what if we didn't have that one deal? We don't want to ever rely on one big opportunity or a few big opportunities. So we that's great, and we want to go after that, the 1,000 to 5,000 market opportunities, but we need to make sure that we have the volume there as well.
Yeah, there's velocity, sales velocity.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that's another metric to measure your sales folks on, is how many opportunities are they coming in with.
Pipeline management, absolutely.
Pipeline,
you're right. That's where you're going. Okay, yeah.
we know,
because they fall off. They
do.
Not every one deal that comes in the top ends up at the bottom. So.
Yeah, they do. They don't. You understand metrics. Before we get into profitability, I do want to ask this. So you have sales staff, okay, and this is something I've been noticing. Is we have folks that or there's partners that are coming to me and saying, well, I need help selling X, I need help selling Y, I need help selling this. My sales sales staff needs help understanding what this is. Do you have your sales folks learn the products and is it something that you say, look, you need to understand what 365 is. You need to understand the value of it. Yeah. You need to understand what is Azure Basics, Series 100 or 200. Do you do that with your sales staff?
We absolutely, all our salespeople are Microsoft certified sales, right off the partner site.
Thank you. That's all I'm going to say. Thank you.
But with that said, I think there's more beyond that.
We then take that and we try to translate it, and we say, let's talk about how we can leverage that information to get the clients. We need to translate that knowledge, right? So when we're presenting opportunities to the clients and to get them to buy in. So we spend a lot of time in discussions, and if we have an opportunity that doesn't close, we discuss why it hasn't closed, and we come back maybe from a different angle depending on the needs of the business. But that's very important, because there are a lot of offerings that would never be approved if we didn't educate the client.
Yeah. And we have a thorough process in there from our engagement team, which does a point on our service delivery, and how they create one sheets for our product lines, whether that be Skype for Business or whether that be some other product. But they ultimately one sheet it up, provide value statements within that, provide that to the sales staff, and then ensure that they understand why this is beneficial to the customer. And here's where the costs and margins are, so that way the sales staff can effectively sell and understand those product lines.
That's so important. That's so important. One of the things that we talked about, we cascaded that link, ADV Help. I wanted to just kind of let everybody know here, that link, aka.ms/ADV Help. And if Terry, if you can you just put that in the window? The ADV Help, I think, is great for even the sales folks, not just the engineers, because we give unlimited pre-sales support, and then also deployment plans. We won't actually help you with the actual deployment, but we'll give you the plan. So it's available, and I think that even with Azure being so new, right, and with so much in Azure, I think if I was running a company and I had sales folks, I would say that every time you come back from that first discovery appointment, open up the ADV Help ticket. Get somebody on the phone, on the line from Microsoft. How will Microsoft approach this, right? And then I think that by itself is going to help some of the sales staff actually understand the products that they're actually using. I don't know. I used to, I learned pretty well with, just listening and audio and stuff like that. But I also learn better, I think, and I think a lot of people do like this is by doing, right? Just kind of being in
Absolutely.
It, right? There's an emotional tie to how do I figure out, how to architect this deal, because I'm going to make some money, so I need to pay attention. That's more than, hey, you need to go listen and learn about Azure Active Directory, and I need you to figure out how to do Stream Analytics tomorrow.
Right? Well, I think it's counterproductive anyways. I mean, the clients that we're dealing with are not, they're not interested in the underlying technologies, the buzzwords, right? They're ultimately interested in the value that this product is bringing to the table, for their business.
Absolutely.
So that's one of the things. It does help that we incorporate all of our offerings. We use everything that we propose to our clients ourselves. So even the sales staff is aware of the end result, what we're doing with SharePoint, even how OneDrive is integrated, just making our lives easier. We're able to pass that on, with enthusiasm at the client, which I think adds a lot of value when they just see that we're bought in and that we use the new technology offerings ourselves, Skype for Business. I think that helps translate to the client.
That is profound. If you're not using the technology, I mean, come on, spin up some things. And we have a lot of things that we provide for free. We provide Azure for free, $100 a month if you sign up for an account. I mean, why wouldn't you just spin up some infrastructure as a service just to see how to do it?
Yeah.
Because so you can talk about it better.
And create the sandboxes, yeah.
Yeah. All right, so let's go into the next poll here. Business is like a bare knuckle fight each day where I understand that someone out there is trying to put me out of business. There's a reason I'm saying this. Okay, so I don't think so. I'm a pacifist. Life is like a box of blueberries. Yep, each day I wake up, I'm ready to fight for what is mine. Yes, sir, I practice my craft and take each day like it could be my last. Next is, no, can't we all just be friends? Or the last one is, I'd like to let my boss think I feel this way. All right, so we've got some good polls here. That's going to be a good segue kind of into focus and kind of what we want to do here. So let me go ahead and get into the next slide. Over here, one second. All right, let me go ahead and hide the poll. We'll close the poll. Poll's closed. And we will start. Stop sharing. How's that?
Using that Microsoft product, right?
I am. I'm driving this.
Eating your own dog.
There you go. There we go. All right. Focus. This is the last topic that we have today. So first one, running a company with many employees can be difficult. So how do you shape? Wait a minute. That's focus. We got the wrong one. We already been on this one. We need to go to profitability. 1 second.
A little deja vu there.
A little deja vu. Yeah. Right. Didn't we just answer that question? It seems so familiar. All right, profitability. All right, total cost of sales is an important metric when determining compensation and profit margin and probably behavior. How do you approach that?
Total cost of sales is obviously incredibly important, right? I mean, understanding. I've run into so many of my colleagues that don't understand the cost structures of what they're doing. I mean, the difference in having difficulty even understand the difference between gross margin and net. And there's a significant differences between all those. So, I believe one of our challenges at some point, I don't remember what year it was. It's just like the BDRs we sell. It's just understanding whether we're even profitable on the BDRs and what areas we're losing money on, or are we fully profitable on all those lines. Be able to actively be maintaining the BDRs and ensuring that we're hitting our gross margin targets on that, because we are shelling out commissions for it.
Yep.
So if we're not paying attention to that size of growth and making sure and watching and changing the price to our customers, that could be very complicated. And I know there's all these tools that supposedly automate that capturing of the cost structures and manipulate price, but that takes its own amount of back end administration, which goes into the cost of that product, right? How much does it cost to maintain the billing for Azure, BDRs, Office 365, right? And on those cycles as well, there's the timing cycles as well. Just because you want to start selling through CSP, you want to start selling 365, the time between the counts of user accounts can be misaligned. So by the time that we get the bill from Microsoft, that it gets upgraded on the account, those are all very interesting and complicated things to be able to really calculate your true COG. And there is some fuzzy logic in there to be able to get a true cost. But and then you go down into the final, which is your expenses, right? You can start calculating what it actually takes to generate that sale with the sales force, and what is that percentage of that gross sale, and how does that be affected across the many product lines, whether you're selling in a bundle or you're selling individual line items. You need to be fully aware of what that cost structure is in order to be able to be profitable. So many of my colleagues are just not profitable, and they don't know it, and they don't know why.
They don't know why.
Yeah. Because they've added up all their costs into something, and they put money in the bank.
Well, they do it in the first
and they
month.
pull it out.
Here, I'm going to sell you this, and I have this much margin today, and I'm paying some of that in a commission. I'm just going to add that up times 100. Well, the problem is that it never works out as clean as you expect, and that's something that was a painful transition for us to come to the conclusion that we need to do regular auditing on the costs to make sure that something doesn't slip through the cracks, or client cancels something, and did we actually cancel the service? And now we continue to pay for it for however long, like that can kill your profitability on that entire product line if one mistake happens like that. So that regular auditing on each of the product lines is essential to keep the profitability.
And I think there's a general mistake where just because there's profit on the P&L doesn't necessarily to work out to free cash flow. You know, there is that is a lesson to be learned as you grow.
That's profound. No, that is as you grow, and both you guys are bringing up here. There's a lot of detail. There's a lot of variables that happen. But I think the other thing to really think about is, the cost of sale is this right now, first month, right? But what happens to that account? Right? How many extra hours do we have to put in? Right? If it's a managed services contract, where they're thinking, okay, well, this is the profit margin on managed services, X, Y, and Z, and we've considered, okay, we're going to make X because we know the average number of hours being utilized from these type of clients is Y. We know that, but you can't do that for every. No. So going back and ensuring that you're looking at that is really important. I guess my next thing was, do you then look at the lines of business and those thin margin items, you just reduce that from your offerings? Or do you have to
I think that's an ongoing conversation.
It's an ongoing debate that we have, and so the short answer would be yes, we certainly don't want to focus on the high risk, low margin offerings, but a lot of times the client expects you to do that, to provide that offering, and if you just say, we're not going to provide it, they may need to find that from somebody else, which then may introduce a competitor. So we end up holding on to some that are maybe a break even, just to make it easier for our clients.
Or the amount of, and I think risk is a big part of that. And then I think the other thing is the amount of effort it actually takes to bring that product line in. I mean, if it's a lag where we're not leading with it and it's lagging into that customer, and we're just going wider on our revenues with that customer, it has. It's just, let's say that product line may not be earmarked for consideration of whether we continue it or not. But the other factor is risk, right? I mean, if it reduces our risk with the customer, then absolutely, even though it's low margin, it's a viable product.
So we had talked about creating high margin packages. I think we already talked about that, and that's a good approach, obviously, because we can be the ones redlining out products that aren't making money, right? As opposed to the customer who sees your proposal and was like, "Oh, that must be high margin. Let's get rid of that." And now you have this deal that So I think we've already talked about that. I think we understand that. I guess just we'll finalize this one with what are the most common mistakes businesses are making that prevent them from being consistently as profitable as possible, and it may have some of the things we just talked about, but are there anything else that you'd like to bring up that you think mistakes?
Regularly in the managed service space, I see people don't understand their effective rate compared to their effective cost.
Okay.
I think that's an important lesson in managed services to be able to deal with. Free cash flow is important. I think a lot of, I don't think that a lot of managed service providers, and nor of us, been classically trained on how to run a business. It took me quite a few years to understand what a balance sheet was and why to use the balance sheet. And I've run into all kinds of business owners that still look at a balance sheet and they're like, "Yeah, I don't know what that thing's for. Yeah. That's for the accountants." And that's your scorecard as a business owner, which is interesting. And then cash flow statements, how to understand those. I mean, those are all parts of running a business that have nothing to do with my classical computer science and Microsoft, Novell. What other dead technologies are out there? Lotus Notes, all the things that I've learned and tossed away. But sure wish I had paid attention to that accounting class in college.
The one thing that I would say is, it helps to have two partners that can challenge each other. Mm-hmm. And so, what I would say the biggest mistake that we had made in the past, and we've tried to figure out how to correct, is don't make assumptions. You may be in trouble in an area with a specific client, but if you don't look at just the raw data, the raw KPIs that are important, you can make bad assumptions. So it's important to track that information and to not make assumptions. I would take a call from a client that was, I thought we were really upside down with this client, and they're unhappy, they're upset, they're taking great resources, and I feel like we've been losing money for the last 8 months. But we had a report that I was able to pull up right before I went on the call to just look at the trending of exactly what you talked about. What was the time what were the costs in. And I was able to see that we had turned and become really profitable in the last 3 or 4 months. And didn't know that from just our meetings and hadn't figured it out. But that made me handle the call completely different with that client. I was ready to just walk away because they were a headache and I thought we were losing money, but we weren't. They were actually a profitable client going in the right direction. That changed my direction. So without the KPIs, without me having a partner that's challenging me when I say, this is what I think we should do, and he says, show me the numbers. And I do the same thing to him, and that guides us. And so we've come to believe in that, and we found that our instincts are not always accurate.
What I think the underlying theme here is that you guys have control of your business because you're taking active interest in all facets.
Yeah.
You've delegated, you built Salesforce, you built your engineering staff, you understand the total cost of sales, you understand the P&L sheet, you understand how to work together to find that. But I like the fact that you're on top of it. And the titans of sales and industry are usually the ones that are on top of it. And they're not doing here's the CPA, that's what that means. Yeah. Let them figure it out. It's the ones that are on top of it. And if there's anything that our partners can take away from today is, be on top of it. Challenge yourself. Every day is a bare knuckle fight, right? Bare knuckle fist fight. Great. So, all right. So with that being said, thanks so much for joining today. We really do appreciate it. We strive to provide, the best possible, show for you and content. And once again, look, I want to get each and every one of you on the show, so let's talk about it. I'll be up in Northern California next week. Looking forward to meeting partners that I haven't met with yet. All right, have a great day. Bye-bye.